See, you know what we've been doing here, little bits and bobs, right? But it
Yeah.
doesn't look like we're doing it, but it is happening quite fast. So a dehumidifier, yes?
Hmm.
With it being run away and run away and run away, it doesn't work too well in the winter. Um, but again, inside a house, it does work better. Outside in the environment, no, 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 it fixes up with frost on it. Now, with the dehumidifier as it stands, how much water is going into that butt? I mean, it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's an
Yeah.
incredible
Yeah.
amount. Now we're doing it by hand at the moment, and we plan to put it in and plumb it in properly. The thing is, these dehumidifiers can run away for another thing that you can do. You can keep your house nice and so. Basically, you put one in your bathroom.
Hmm.
Then from the pipe that goes up into the ceiling area or on the wall, but upwards, you need to take the wheels off and make it look all nice and pretty in a nice wooden box. So with it being up in the bathroom, you don't need an extractor fan so much because you want to grab all of that steam because after all, that is water. And as the dehumidifier runs away, runs away, runs away, runs away, fills up and it trickles down into the pipe, into the water butt, this can also be flushed.
Yeah.
So along with rainwater, along with dehumidifier inside your house, and let's be realistic with this dehumidifier, it is not expensive. It is very cheap to run. And it does work off of solar panels, but you're relying on a good day for that. So using that to your advantage, I would say, and one in your kitchen as well, is enough to keep the house nice and damp free. It also stops mold, prevents it, I should say. It doesn't stop it, it prevents it. It makes it much more difficult for it to live. And this then fills up a water butt that, if put in a correct place, such as the rest of the systems that we've done, you can then begin to extract more water into your butt. And I mean, we're in the middle of summer. I'd say we've now coming out at the end of it, but this is running away with a lot of water. So we've got a 2 litre tank on this one, and it will fill up a 5 litre. And I mean that is doing it very quickly, and it is working really, really well.
Hmm.
You see, I extract it from the wood, the moisture from the wood, and then run it this way. On the last time I tried that, and that was really successful as well. So you're constantly topping up this couple of litres here, there, and everywhere. The toilet we've managed to get down to, it's not a full litre that's being flushed. There's less than a litre in there because I tested it by filling it up with objects, and
Yeah.
then I began to tip a litre bottle in there until I got the float to balance, if you like, where that bit would come off and stop giving you water from the mains. So it's less than a litre and it flushes quite enough to get rid of what you need it to. Now, whether that is pushing it enough of it away in the sewer, that's another question entirely. So, but build up, push, 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 push. I think it is. I think it's definitely going because I think the pipes for draining sewerage and different stuff like that is non-gripping. It shouldn't be gripping. It should be nice and slippery. So nanotechnology or spray inside those sort of pipes before they get put down would also help with this slipping away type process. Again, I would be hesitant to collect it from that in its format and then dehumidify that again at the other end. Do you get what I mean? After you flushed it away, your piss and your shit is what I'm on about, and also the water that's moved it away. Well, what happens if you remove the moisture from that? You see, that's the thing.
Yeah.
You extract the moisture from it. Then, well, have you stopped the bacteria? Sure, it won't run away down into the sewers, but then that water, could it be then reused? And after a time, I don't know if it absolutely would, because I think it would begin to, there'll be some degrading go on. So you need to do it again and again and again and again. And then you're left with more and more and more and more debris, crystals and stuff like that. So again, what could it be used for? Could it be useful? Not really. Yes, it could. It would definitely save it when it gets going into the rivers and stuff like this. And then there is collecting all of this water that's underground as well. Again, if you dig a nice big hole under the ground and you're reaching water down there, I dare say that is ever being extracted out. The sun's penetration is not reaching that enough to heat it to cause it to steam. So you'd call that rising damp. And I think roots live on rising damp, and trees and all sorts of vegetation reaches down into this. That's why they grow their roots downwards. So you notice that experiment that I did with the plant pot with the roses tub underneath it?
Yeah.
Have you noticed that when you only fill the water in the bottom part, you would expect it all to dry? The soil and everything. It sort of does, but then you notice the roots. They channel down into it, and then what they do is then they start to live inside the... Anyone else would call that pot bound. It is and it isn't. That's shades. That's a myth, I would say. That when you see it, oh, it's all pot bound. No, it's not. It's just where the most of the water is in this area, because it has a tendency that when you put water in, it travels downwards and it pulls in the bottom of the pot, and therefore the roots are inclined to seek this out and spread in that part. So I've noticed with the plants, and then I thought, well, is it or isn't it? Well, then put a pot underneath it and only put the water in the pot. You'll then notice the roots will, they will find their way in there. And you know, the plant should have died with how dry the soil was. Nope, it didn't. It was going to, it started wilting, but she just turned off her leaves for a bit just to advance the roots. And then she put the roots in the water completely in, and some of them were slightly out. I'm waiting for this one to do it. To be honest, I am still waiting for her to start reaching her roots down, but what she'll do is begin to kill off her leaves, interestingly. So these ones are still yet to come off, to be honest. So she's getting there. And then there's another question of whether there is a big enough hole in there for her to do that. But given on one of her clones have already done this, so do I need to continue that experiment? Probably not. So that is very interesting. Another one would be another great invention to make, although it's not really, it's just one of those little funny tweaky things that you can do, is put a pump in the bottom here with a pipe that comes up the top, and a solar panel on your windowsill. Nothing special. You just want it to just sprinkle the water, and even a little is a lot, just to keep cycling that. So you know when you tip from the hanging basket, you tip out all the water in it and it all runs at the bottom. Collect it with the jug, yes? This is a fascinating thing. When you collect it with the jug, it'll fill up. Not all the way to what you just put in. Then you wait for it to stop dripping down, if you've got the time. And then you tip it in again, but around a different area, and then do the same thing. And then you'll notice even less. And then you do it again until you get no more drip out of the bottom. Then you give it enough time for the soil to absorb that. And then the medium is, well, the roots will be, oh, okay, fair enough. I'm going to take some time to now extract from the soil here. So if you were to dig a deep enough hole in the ground and stick a dehumidifier in there, and then cover the top with a piece of metal sheeting or whatnot, and then put a layer of soil over that with your dehumidifier, and you had a pump on this one, you could pump out the water from there that had just been collected from the ground anyway, and then you can then start to fill this into water butts and different things like that, and then you can flush that. And it's not that much on energy if you were to set it up with solar panels. Sun comes up, it's a nice hot day, well, hell yeah, that's really great. Then let's start extracting that water with the dehumidifier and then put it in your butt. In the summer, there's going to be less water around. In the winter, there's going to be a lot more, so you don't need that to work. So you only need the solar panels to work during the summer. And lo and behold, solar panels seem to work a lot better in the summer than they do in the winter. So you kind of use that sort of sequencing, if you like. And then you don't need to stop the solar panels from working. No, there's your 30% extra that you can then just have a switch for summer and winter on it. When it's in summer mode, it's working this way. You're only powering into the dehumidifier, and there's more than enough there, even with the slight cloud cover and different stuff like that in your summer days. And then you have another one that's winter mode, which then those same solar panels no longer really need to do that because it's going to be raining a lot more. You just then switch it over to winter mode, and then those solar panels have another cable that then feeds into your other solar panels, and then you've got your 30%. That's being quite thrifty. Yet sure, you could probably do it digitally, with something with a clock that makes it switch from one to the other, or you can do it manually. Click, click, click. When you change your clocks back, oh, I got to go and hit these into winter mode. You know, and then you'll see the water fill in the butts this way. Inside your house, it's going to be extracting anyway and putting that in there. And then when you're storing this water in this way, it stops it all really quickly getting to the rivers. Because you've got to admit, drains are fascinating things to me. I think they're fascinating. the way they get the water from the road, get the water from the houses, get the water from here, and they just push it into a river somewhere, and they just get there so quickly. And the more and more we keep doing this so quickly, we are looking at rivers when they start to, because when it starts to rain, you get a lot of water drop in an area, but this cloud moves. And also the rivers flow with this moving, dropping, and water getting into the rivers quicker and quicker and quicker. And oh my God, they're getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And rivers are not just subject to what you can see. It's if you could see it underground as well, the river banks and everywhere else beside the river, this water leaches. It is incredible. Right, when you take the pit understanding that you've got a pit here of stagnant water, and then you've got a pit here with more fresher water, that the life is absolutely exploding in it. And then you've got the one over here, no life at all. Well, this one feeds this one through the ground, yes? Rivers are much the same. That is only the iceberg tip of what you're seeing going on. The bigger picture is underground. It is not just in the river itself. But we keep adding to it really quickly. And as this storm moves, it is just throwing it, all of it's being dumped into a river, and then you begin to get flooding appear in other areas. And it's not just the result of rivers bursting their banks, but it's also what's going on underground that we can't see. You have to think about what's going on beyond that. When you look at a pit, you get it. You just get it, that there is some sort of connection between that one over there and this one over here. That's a large amount of room to travel, but that is underground, what is not being seen. So if we are storing it in cylinders here, there, and everywhere, it's not discharging into the river as quickly, and then you're holding it. And this works wonders in hot summers. You can then slowly but surely, if you underneath a road, what else is it doing? Not much. Sure, it could be a little risky because you could have a car go over it. If it's not done correctly, it could collapse into that. But if it was metal container, that it went into this container that then had an overflow on it, that when it reached capacity, full capacity, it then overspilled and then that went into the river. You have just saved the river from this volume. And if that was built under all roads, it went into there to start with, and then there's that overflow. But it also has another pipe at the bottom, which is then can be lifted at any time to allow the water to escape. So, sure, that's going to fill up, and you're going to have a percentage. Okay, the storm has passed. The river drops back down again. And then you discharge this slowly. It rises the river just slightly, but not enough to cause that bursting of banks or what's going on under the ground to cause it to flood over here and over here. And it's not really flooding, it's just leaching through much the same way the pit does. Yeah, this is when I really start to focus in on this stuff now. I'm really there now. I was really popping these vials. And yeah, when we start to go in towards the cusp of winter and the rain beginning to subside, now we get into the more drier areas. If summer really begins to heat up, the rivers begin to lose all of this, and then underneath the land begins to start to lose all of this moisture too. That's then when you get crops that don't grow properly. This is then when you have to put water on the fields. This is when potatoes perhaps don't absorb as much as they needed to. This has a massive knock-on effect, because what is going on in the rivers is not all of the story. It's just a percentage, a tip of the iceberg, and the rest of the iceberg remains hidden underneath all of that concrete or soil or this, that, and the other. So then you've got all of these tanks of water under your roads that you've saved from causing it to burst your banks or cause flooding. More cities are being built, more towns are being built, more fast routes to the rivers are being put in. We just chuck it in the river, chuck it in the river. And it's a great concept, I love it. But if we don't catch ourselves and we don't make the river slightly wider or deeper, and even if you did do it like that, it doesn't 100% work in this aspect. Because if not, the rivers would just erode away all of the water anyway. And you move into summer, you can then begin to put this back into the river when it's needed. Series of vats. You have to label them in A, B's and C's, or 1, 2s and 3s, whatever you want to do. So all of the one containers start to leak out slowly but surely during the summer. And then you've got through July whilst keeping your rivers full, and your fields will reflect this. And then vat number B or 2 then now starts to go as you're getting out and out and out and out. And then these are going to be quite empty. And then the rains come again, fill fill them. It takes time to fill them. And the river then has to deal with just what lands on the land, if you like. And then this trickles its way into the river as well. That's interesting. It works both ways. What is put in pushes out, and what is put on the land pushes in. That's interesting, isn't it? That's amazing. Because water always finds a way. It always does. Through anything. Rock is no match to water.
Yeah.
Even pottery. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Terracotta. Even this is no match for it. It will begin to leach through eventually, given enough time. It will find its way. And whether that is sweating and becomes colder and condensates is another way it does it. It's freaking amazing, water. It's absolutely amazing. And it's practically, you cannot kill it. If you were to think of killing, you can't burn it. Yeah, you can. No, you can't. You cannot physically burn water. It's impossible to burn it. Isn't that a strange thing? If you take it into space, you never really get rid of it. It's almost impossible for this to even die, if you want to look at it as in a way of putting it into understanding a death in something. And another thing that's really amazing about it is fresh water is saltwater sweat. When the sea starts sweating, it's getting rather hot here. I'm just going to release some of my freshest. And what is really bizarre, we drink this sea sweat. That is refreshing. And we sweat salt.
Yeah.
We're in reverse of what a river or the ocean does. We do it in reverse. Isn't that bizarre? Don't you find that bizarre?
It is bizarre, isn't it?
But also fascinating,
Yeah.
right? That this is basically, it's sea sweat. And we leak salt. We leak salty water, tears, nose, phlegm is salty. A good reason for it. We are the reverse of that. Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
Fascinating, right? Our sweatness is basically salt. Here, our ocean. There you go. We clean in rivers, but yet should we be cleaning in the ocean? Think about it, though. Where would it be much more beneficial, your sweat and everything else? Well, in the sea. Is it the river? When the river is the byproduct of that. So you want to make it salty. Whoa! You ever wondered why the sea tastes so salty? Isn't it interesting? And it's almost like we are the reverse of what that is. In a way, life seems to be the reverse of what salt water is, or salt water is the reverse of what we are, but acts in the reverse and therefore cycle. One gives and we're giving. Technically, we're giving back to the ocean again, and then it gives back to us in a drink, and then we drink it, sweat. Even semen, I believe, is salty. I can only take that from what I've heard, so there you are. And then, if that is this way, look at that. Look at that giving of life and taking of life and giving to life. Oh, isn't that recycle and cycle versus recycle and cycle? Wow, isn't that beautiful? Poetic in itself, right? So yeah, I don't know whether it would work 100% this way, but I think it's worth a shot, right? And then if we are flushing toilets and stuff goes into that, when you start to get less river water, that's when you get concentrates build up. So if something was put into the river, if something did leach into the river, if the sewer did overflow and there's too much of it that's then when you get the problem, because it's a small amount, and this stuff going in that seems like a little, when the river falls below a certain level, that is then concentrate. That is what is detrimental to the life in the river. That is what is detrimental to all things that then go into the river. But if you're adding to that fresh douche, you're basically just leaching down what is already there. Yes? And it makes it less concentrate. Less morbid way to think about it. It's if you kept dripping in a constant conveyor belt of blackcurrant and water that you had at a certain level, and you dripped a few drops of blackcurrant in there, and you took it and were like, yeah, that's pretty good, that's nice. But when you drop the water level in there and keep adding these few drops, that is too strong. That is too strong. That's what happens each time. So we need to add in some more water at the time of doing that, and then that process can continue on. Yes. And space and travel and all sorts of things like that. If we all don't master that and figure that space travel becomes impossible until we align to those recycles and cycles that are going on. Plus, with the cycling of oxygen and carbon, carbon and oxygen, and then finding the not just nature, not just bacteria, certain bacteria. I believe it is bacteria, cyan, not sure. Never mind, whatever that is. There's certain types of bacteria that when they absorb that and die and they break, they release that. If we don't figure that, space travel is impossible, almost impossible, because you haven't got an Earth to keep sending this stuff up to, from, because basically that's tapping in from one to the other, keep sending it in. No, it needs to be self-sustained. But you need to understand a cycle and a recycle. To cycle, to go on to recycle, to then cycle, recycle, cycle, recycle. And this cycle, recycle is then plagued out in the wider universal structure. A cycling and recycling, a cycling and recycling. This is what it is in everything. It is prepping you in a way of what is to come. When you level to it and you begin to see it in this aspect, and then you begin to, that is when you sing that very song. Doesn't mean that you become victim to it. Yes, like you become victim to it. You can either stay and do nothing, and then that is you being a victim to it, or the universe will challenge you. Hey, do you see this? Hey, do you see this? It's all within you. It's all here. If you've managed these recycle and cycles, now the biggest test ever. Can you manage this one? Cycle, recycle, cycle, recycle. It's very interesting to me. This is fascinating. It is the biggest call that is the song that is being sung. That is what is being sung. And yeah, only a few get it. Only a few get it. And then where do you stand in that? So only a few will get that. And when you do, then this number begins to explode, get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and the teachings go on and on and on and on and on and on. And then, yeah, and then it begins to create a collective. No one is above each other in that, in a way. Think about it, because you all had to figure that equally on your own journey. So, who is more intelligent out of all of that? No one. All of you together. And then there is something more so, but what would be the point in learning that? We gotta go through all of these first. Then we learn more. Isn't that wonderful? So each would have to journey this way in order to achieve this way. And then when you begin to achieve this way, oh wow. Parallel. And then together, united minds, unity together. That is when the next one comes apparent. But it will take this. And that wind is picking up. Isn't that nice? I want to go and feel that. And there's what, a 10-day hot day trend? We'll bring it on.
Warmer is coming. 24, 25 reaches 29 and then stays about 25.
Well, we'll take that. That's very nice. That's very nice. And then we roll on for winter, don't we? But if it's going to be a mild autumn, I'll also accept that too, won't you? That'll be quite nice. That last October was pretty warm, wasn't it? No, one before. So, again, very good. Very good. Things are changing. So, time and tide, rivers and water, and yeah, I'm going to leave this one here. So, there are lots of things around that can do this sort of thing, that could be implemented in this way. And then if you were to take fresh water, and sure, it's energy, it's going to be taking energy, so you've got to get thrifty with it. Set it up so that it helps you win. And then a lot of water to be flushed down a toilet then saves precious fresh water for drinking. And then how? That should free up more room for more humans to exist, right? More animals, more food, more this, more that. Now, do we have enough water to take the space? Yes. Do we have enough water to do this? Yes. Do we have enough water for an underground? Yes. Do we have enough water? It's wonderful, isn't it? It's all moving exactly the way it should. So it's getting there. teething problems, I say, but those can always be worked out. Anyway, so that's it for now. That's wonderful. I like that.